The County Donegal Railway narrow gauge network in the north west of Ireland also acquired a series of second-hand vehicles which it adapted for its own use, and perhaps one of the most remarkable was this vehicle in the centre here. It's the it was bought from the Dublin and Blessington steam tramway, which was an Irish standard gauge, that's 5'3" gauge line, and that had been closed in 1932 due to road competition, and it was bought by Forbes and regauged at Stranraer, and originally it had a 35 horsepower Drury petrol engine, and this was how it was run originally, but it overheated quite a bit. You can see there that the radiator is at the front, but it could be driven from both ends, so in fact there's a radiator at each end, and this was the first bi-directional rail car to enter service on the Donegal Railway, and it was carried on 8 wheels. There's a central powered bogie, and then 2 separate bogies, one at each end of a single axle, and the power was transmitted, as I say, to the centre pair of axles. And the great thing is that it could be driven from each end, so no need to turn the rail car once it reached its destination. And I've modelled 3 versions of this vehicle, which is preserved at the Folk and Transport Museum in the Railway Gallery there at Coultra in County Down. And this is the first version as it was released from Stranraer, where the regauging was carried out. And the second version over here is the when they changed the layout somewhat. This curved pane of glass, which you can see on the original, has been replaced by an ordinary panel. Presumably the glass got broken, or was regarded as too dangerous. But the radiators were moved to the roof to help with the cooling, and it ran fairly successfully in that configuration for a number of years, and then eventually it was turned into a trailer, an unpowered trailer, and as an unpowered trailer it has been preserved at the museum. Originally it had seating for about 40 people. I will say about because depending on how many they could squeeze in. Now this first version here, I've depicted it, or it's modelled, placed in trains at Lochderg station, pulling a trailer, and this is trailer number 13, and this was also bought from the Dublin and Blessington steam tramway, and originally it was a rail car. It was powered by a 22 horsepower Ford engine rail car, and there were a pair of these, and it was bought at a knockdown price by Forbes, and it was converted to the narrow gauge in Stranraer again, and it could seat people, about 16 people at any one time, and it lasted for about 10 years. When it was so dilapidated, Forbes actually said it's now in a rather advanced state of dilapidation, so in the mid-1940s it was scrapped. This is trailer number 3 in its final form, railcar stroke trailer number 3 in its final form at the museum at Coultra. So you can see there it's a very characteristic shape, and also the end panel there, the driving compartment that had been at each end, and it looks very much like the tram car that it originally was. So Forbes was always on the lookout for a bargain, and one of the bargains that he did snap up was over here is railcar number 10, and this actually comes from the Clocher Valley Railway, and in many ways it was the progenitor or the inspiration for Forbes's series of rail cars. And number 10 came, as I say, came from the the Clocker Valley Railway. It was the rail car on the Clocker Valley Railway, and at the closure of the line, of the Clocker Valley line, it was snapped up by Forbes, who had seen it when he was on the committee which investigated the Clocker Valley Railway to see if it could be made financially viable. And it was a very, you can see from it, it's clearly the progenitor of the later rail cars that were fitted out by Forbes at Stranraer and at Dundalk, using the Walker Brothers powered unit from Wigan, supplied from Wigan. And so he was very keen to purchase this vehicle as soon as it came up as available, and it's now preserved at Coultragh in the Folk and Transport Museum there in the Railway Gallery. And you can see here that it is hauling the third version of the ex-Dublin and Blessington steam tramway number 3, which by then had been converted to a trailer and been de-engined, and essentially there's that's the condition in which it's now preserved at the museum. On the rear of it is Donegal Railways Red van. These were also snapped up. The vans and wagons that ran on the Clocker Valley Railway were snapped up by Forbes as soon as they became available, as the company closed in the late 1930s. And because they were smaller and lighter weight than the conventional County Donegal Railway vehicles, then they were easier. They were designed for the rail cars. He then used them for the rail cars to haul. And if we go over to this version of railcar number 3, you'll see here it's hauling a red painted open wagon. This also comes from the Clocker Valley Railway, and it was designed for use or brought into use for running with the railcars. However, as the railcars became more powerful, then the bigger cars were introduced. Then conventional Donegal Railway wagons could be hauled much larger, and often there was a mix of vehicles behind a railcar. So there we are. There's the wagon number 3 behind railcar number 3, the second version of railcar number 3. And these then are basically the acquisitions. This is 3 versions of the same vehicle: the trailer, the first version, and the second version of the railcar. And but it's remarkable that of these, at least 2 of them, the 2 here, railcar number 10 and trailer number 3, as it became, are now in preservation. Number 10, as befits such an historic vehicle, has been preserved, and here it is at the in the Transport Gallery at the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum, which I keep mentioning. It's so well worth a visit. There is so much there to see, and so much of the County Donegal Railway that has survived. So here's number 10 with its very distinctive half cab, and inside you can see the seating, very standard bus type seating. And when it ran on the Clocker Valley Railway, it was running largely on a road tramway through the middle of places like Ocher, Clocher, Ochnacloy, let me think where else, 5 Mile Town, Maguire's Bridge, Caledon. And so it was very much operating like a bus on rails. In the last photograph here you can see the driving compartment of the railcar number 10, and it's very similar to the compartments, the half cab compartments of the later railcars. So that's all the information I have to give you about these purchased vehicles for the County Donegal Railway. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do subscribe. Please leave a comment if you wish, and maybe give me a thumbs up.